History remembers kings, queens, conquerors, and empires. But sometimes, the most powerful force in history was neither war nor politics. It was love. These relationships inspired monuments, toppled dynasties, sparked scandals, triggered conflicts, and changed the fate of nations forever. Tonight, we follow 7 extraordinary couples whose passions reshaped the world. Their names echo across centuries, whispered in palaces, carved into stone, and written in the blood of empires. Suleiman and Hurrem were not merely lovers. Their relationship became a dangerous game of seduction, ambition, palace intrigue, and raw power inside the heart of the Ottoman court. How did a slave girl seize power inside the world's mightiest empire? In the 16th century, a young captive from Eastern Europe was dragged into the imperial harem of Constantinople. They named her Hurrem. She was meant to be invisible, one of hundreds bound to silence and servitude. But within those marble walls, something impossible happened. She captured the heart of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, ruler of an empire across 3 continents. And then, he did the unthinkable. Suleiman freed her, married her, shattered centuries of Ottoman tradition to do it. A slave became one of the most powerful figures in Ottoman history. She advised the Sultan, corresponded with foreign kings, shaped the very succession of the empire. Her enemies whispered of witchcraft. Her supporters spoke of destiny. Suleiman wrote her love poems that survive to this day, calling her his throne of joy. But another love story would carve its grief into white marble and leave behind one of the most beautiful monuments on earth. Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal shared a love so profound that grief would reshape an empire, and devotion would build one of history's greatest symbols of love. Could love really build one of the world's greatest wonders? In 17th century India, the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan ruled an empire of unimaginable wealth. But all his gold could not save the woman he loved. Her name was Mumtaz Mahal, his companion, his confidant, the mother of his children. When she died, giving birth to their 14th child, the emperor wept until his hair turned white. And what he did next would echo for centuries. He summoned the finest architects from Persia, the Ottoman lands, and beyond. The Taj Mahal would take more than 20 years to build, employing tens of thousands. Carved from white marble that shifts color with the rising sun, it was a tomb, a temple, and a love letter written in stone. Yet one king would walk away from an entire empire for the woman he loved. Edward and Wallace would trigger a royal scandal that shook an empire, a story of forbidden passion, public outrage, and the most unimaginable sacrifice a king has ever made. The woman for whom a king abandoned a throne. In 1936, Britain stood at the edge of a crisis no one imagined possible. Edward VIII, newly crowned King of the United Kingdom, had fallen in love. Her name was Wallis Simpson, American, twice divorced, and entirely unacceptable to the church, the government, and the royal family. Edward was given an impossible choice: the crown or the woman. What would you choose? He chose her. In a radio broadcast that shocked the world, he confessed he could not bear the burden of kingship without her. A reigning British king voluntarily gave up the throne for love, an act unprecedented in modern history. He left the palace, the empire, 1,000 years of tradition behind him. They lived out their lives in quiet exile, judged, watched, eternally bound to the empire he had walked away from. But another forbidden romance would become one of history's greatest tragedies. Abelard and Eloise lived a forbidden love so intense, so reckless, and so tragic that 9 centuries later the world still cannot forget the price they paid for it. One of history's most tragic forbidden love stories. In 12th century Paris, Peter Abelard was the most celebrated philosopher of his age. Eloise was his pupil, brilliant, fluent in Latin and Greek, gifted beyond the expectations of her time. Their affair began in secret, 2 minds and 2 hearts that had finally found their equal. But what happened when her family discovered the truth is almost too cruel to tell. Abelard was attacked and brutally maimed. Eloise was forced into a convent. Yet even separated by walls and vows, they wrote to each other. Their love letters, preserved across nearly 900 years, remain among the most haunting documents of the medieval world. They were never reunited in life. They were buried together in death. And yet another woman would rise to save an empire when its ruler nearly fled. Justinian and Theodora were partners in power, bound by fierce loyalty and tested by fire. Their courage in a single terrifying moment would save an entire empire from collapse. The emperor who nearly fled and the woman who saved an empire. In 6th century Constantinople, Emperor Justinian sat on the throne of the Eastern Roman Empire. Beside him stood Theodora. Once a performer in the streets and theaters of the capital, now empress of one of the most powerful states on earth. In the year 532, the city erupted. Half of Constantinople burned. Mobs called for Justinian's head. His ministers urged him to flee. The emperor himself prepared to abandon the throne. And then his wife stood up. She told him that royalty made a fine burial shroud, and that she would rather die an empress than live in exile. The men around her fell silent. Justinian stayed. The revolt was crushed. The empire endured. From that moment, Theodora ruled as a true partner, shaping laws, defending the powerless, and reforming the rights of women. But one love story would become so extraordinary that a queen would be crowned after death. Inez and Pedro lived a love so obsessive it would end in assassination, ignite a king's revenge, and produce one of the most chilling acts in all of royal history. The queen who was crowned after death. In 14th century Portugal, Prince Pedro fell in love with a noblewoman named Inez de Castro. Their love was passionate, dangerous, and politically forbidden. The king, fearing her family's influence, ordered her assassination. Inez was murdered in front of her children, and then Pedro became king. His grief turned to fury. He hunted down those responsible, and then he did something no one had ever seen. He had her body exhumed, dressed in royal robes, placed upon a throne. The nobles of Portugal were summoned to kiss the hand of a dead queen. Whether legend or fact, it has haunted Portuguese memory for nearly 7 centuries. Pedro built 2 stone tombs, his and hers, facing one another, so that on the day of resurrection, their eyes would meet first. And finally, a couple whose ambition would challenge Rome itself. Zenobia and Odenathus were a couple of beauty, brilliance, and ruthless ambition. A desert dynasty whose warfare and defiance would shake the mighty Roman Empire itself. The royal couple who dared to challenge the Roman Empire. In the 3rd century, in the desert oasis of Palmyra, King Odenathus carved a kingdom between Rome and Persia. Beside him ruled Zenobia, a woman of fierce intellect, said to descend from Cleopatra herself. She spoke many languages, studied philosophy, and rode at the head of armies. When her husband was assassinated, many expected Palmyra to fall. They were wrong. Zenobia seized power in the name of her young son. She launched daring campaigns across the eastern provinces, conquering Egypt, Syria, much of Asia Minor. For one brilliant moment, she ruled one of the most powerful realms in the ancient world, a desert empire that defied the might of Rome. The Emperor Aurelian himself was forced to march against her. She was defeated, captured, led in golden chains through the streets of Rome. But her legend never died. She remains one of history's most extraordinary queens, a woman who dared to challenge an empire. These stories prove that history is not shaped by armies alone. Sometimes a relationship, a sacrifice, a betrayal, or a decision made in the name of love can change the course of the world forever. Empires rise and fall, but the bonds between two human hearts can echo across centuries. Which couple changed history the most? Tell us in the comments. And if you love extraordinary stories of love, power, betrayal, and ambition, subscribe to Curiosity Archives for more remarkable journeys into the past.